Hi everybody, this is Maria Clark and welcome to my studio. Today I have another mandala dot painting for you, and this really pretty painting is on an 8x8 canvas panel. And here's a little close-up of some of the detail work that we'll be doing in this pattern. And because this is a more complex pattern, I have created a PDF pattern that's available in my Etsy shop. And I show you the grid that I'm going to use and all of the colors, the tools that we'll be using and how to use them. And then I have a grid laid out with each row, and I've given you the size of the tool that we're using and what color of paint. And then as you move out in the pattern, I've highlighted the row that we're on and provided you some information. And then I've given you the full dotting pattern so you can see that as well. So again, available in my Etsy shop. I hope you take advantage of that if you'd like to. So here are the materials. As you know, I'm using these crystallite crochet hooks and these nail dotting tools. I just love this set. A chalk pencil, my 8x8 canvas, which I've primed with the Americana DecoArt chalky finish paint, and then the variety of paints. So I'm going to start off, and I'm going to be using the lavender paint. It's a little bit... because this video is a little bit bright, it's hard to see, but this is actually the lavender. And I started in the center with the number H, 8 hook, and just dotted that, put the center dot in. And now I'm going around using the largest nail dotter, also in lavender, same color, for both those rows. And you can see that now I'm moving into the next row, and I'm using lavender and the G6 hook, which is the 4mm hook, and putting some of those dots so that you can see how I'm offsetting those. Now I've mixed a lighter shade of the lavender and titanium white, so I have a light purple, and I'm going ahead and using my largest nail dotting tool, and I'm putting a dot right in between those two previous dots. And I'm really doing this because when you see this next part, I put this reference, these dots are used as reference. So now I'm using the Irish moss, and I use the number H8 5mm crochet hook to make the Irish moss dots. And then I'm using the largest nail dotting tool and using that dot that I placed in the first or in the last row. I'm walking those dots not all the way around, but mostly around, sort of towards the top of the green dot, walking it around. And my technique is to walk around one side and then move to walk around the other side. I just find that easier, kind of control the dots a little bit better. So I'll go ahead and put those dots all the way around. And now I'm going in with the number 11, it's the L11 8mm crochet hook, and using lavender again, I'm putting that larger dot right there in between the green dots. And then I'm going to go now with the lightest shade of paint again. This is the light purple and the largest nail dotting tool. And you can see that I'm starting at the very top of the purple dot and walking those dots around, and they kind of connect with the previous row and make sort of like a curve around those two dots. And I think that's really a really pretty look. So we'll just continue to walk those dots all the way around. If you need to add or use a smaller tool or something like that because of the way your dots are sized or positioned, don't worry about that. Just use a size of tool that you think is going to work for you. I made a little mistake there, so I'm just using my Q-tip to take that out. I'll move on because I want to let that dry, and then I'll come back to it at the end. I really love the way these dots kind of flow in between the green row and the purple row. Now I'm using the largest nail dotter to put a dot of the Irish moss right above and in between the two, right above the previous Irish moss and in between the purple dots. You can see how I'm doing that, pretty close down to those purple dots. And then I'm going to start there and walk those dots up towards the top of the previous row. And you'll notice that I don't get all the way around because there's not enough paint to drop on. So at this point, when I want that green row to go to sort of encase the previous row, so I'll just pick up some additional paint on a smaller size dotting tool, nail dotting tool, and carry those dots around. So it's sort of forming the petals of these flowers. Now I'm using the G6 4mm crochet hook, and I'm putting some dots right there in the middle. And then I'm using the largest nail dotting tool starting at the top and walking those dots down to that previous green dot. And I'll do that all the way around. So I'm staying with the Irish moss, and I'm using the largest nail dotter to just draw out a row of 3 dots. And still using the nail dotter, I'm going back in, and these are forming the stems of the next row, which is the next floral row that I'll put on. And you can see that I'll just move those dots all the way around. 1 dot on either side of that row of 3. And now I've moved into the sapphire, which is that pretty blue color. And I'm again using the G6 4mm crochet hook. And I'll place the blue dots as you see. And you can see how this is starting to form now the next row of the floral design. Now I'm placing them the 2 dots first, so that when I go back in for this third row, this third dot here, I can actually see how to place them in the center. And if I'm slightly off, then I can make a little bit of an adjustment. So see how that's really pretty, and it's starting to form a nice design here. So I'm going in with the number H8 5mm crochet hook, and I'm putting a dot right above those green dots. And this is forming the top piece of, or actually the bottom piece of the flower. And then I've mixed up a lighter shade of blue with sapphire and titanium white, and I'm going to use the largest nail dotter, and I'm going to walk those around. See how it's really adding a pretty sort of floral element there. Now I'm taking my smaller end of that large nail dotter, or use a size that works for you, and I'm just adding some little buds at the top of those blue dots, 3 little dots there to represent some buds. And I'll put those all the way around. And finish that up. Now I'm going to go back in with my number G6, the 4mm crochet hook, and put another dot above those previous ones, and I'll use the largest nail dotter and the lighter blue shade to walk them around just like I did on the previous row. And now I'm going to take the largest nail dotter, and I'm going to walk the dots up too with the sapphire blue. See, just place 2 little quick dots there, and that's giving us our floral spike. I kind of have been calling this piece lavender and lilac because they are kind of representative of those flowers in my garden. Going back in with the light blue again, and just putting some accent dots, 3 little dots at the top of that spike, and then 1 other on either side in between the 2 dots there. And see how that's just forming that floral spike. They're really pretty. And that's why I thought this was a little bit more complex pattern, and you might like to have a written pattern to take a look at. So if you're interested in that, don't forget that that's available to you. And I'll just go all the way around, placing those dots. Okay, now I'm ready to move on, and I'm using the number J10, the 6mm crochet hook, and the lavender paint to add a dot right above that little series of 3, right in the middle. And I will go all the way around, and then I will use the largest nail dotter and the light purple, and I will walk the dots around each one of those elements. You know, it's really relaxing to do this kind of painting. I do set up a little ritual for myself. I may have told you this in another video, I'm not really sure. But when I'm painting, I really like to relax. It puts me in a meditative state almost, and I kind of can tune out what's going on around me and just concentrate on painting and enjoying the experience of creating something unique and beautiful. And these mandalas are certainly special. Now I'm going to go in with the M13 9mm crochet hook in the lavender. Now one thing I want you to know is, notice that I'm positioning this larger dot a little ways above the previous one, because I'm actually going to walk 3 rows around, and I want to leave enough room to get at least 2 rows of dots all the way around. So I'm leaving a little bit more space than I would normally, just to account for that. So I'll go ahead and place those large lavender dots. And I will use my largest nail dotting tool. I'll dry it a little bit. I think it's a good idea to get in the habit. Just use an old hair dryer, pick up one at the Goodwill or something like that, that you can use in your craft studio. And it's nice to go ahead and dry up some of that paint so I don't run the risk of getting my hands and smearing it as I move around the project. So I'm walking those dots around. Again, I go one way and then I turn it and go the other way. You know, you'll notice that I start at the furthest edge of the painting, as opposed to trying to move my hand across to the top. It's just a little bit easier. I hope that makes sense to you what I'm describing there. But it keeps my hands out of the paint and reduces the risk that I'll smear something. So I want those dots to go all the way around. So just like I did previously with the green dots, I'm taking a smaller one of those nail dotters and just moving those dots so they go all the way around that lavender dot. And then I'll do another row, exactly the same thing, one side, the other, and then use a smaller dotting tool to go all the way around. And then here's my third row. Now you know that in these videos I speed them up a little bit so that they don't run too long. You can always slow it down if you need to, if you want to take more time to see what's really happening here. But I thought it was best to speed it up and then let you choose if you need to make it slower or faster. So again, one side, the other, and then I'll switch to a smaller nail dotting tool and start to carry those dots around. And I'll do that all the way around on each one of them. Now I'm ready to start the edges. And I'm using my moss green and the largest nail dotter to just put a little accent there. And I actually went back up, and using the large nail dotter, I'm adding green. I'm walking green dots sort of at the bottom to simulate leaves. And then I've got that row of the green in each corner, and I've placed here, using the number N 15 10mm, sapphire dot, and I'm using the light blue to walk dots around that. And then I'll use a nail dotter just to put a little accent dot right there at the bottom of that sapphire dot. Then I'll go in with the K10.5, it's the 6.5 millimeter hook, and I'll walk the dots with the light blue around that. And then I'll use the H8 5 millimeter crochet hook to add another dot above those. And that gives me a nice way to pull the eye to the corner and sort of balance the piece a little bit. There's that H8 and the 5 millimeter, again in the sapphire, and just have a dot above each one of those corner pieces. And then I'll go in with the light blue again and walk those dots around. Now, as I get smaller, I am using the smaller, some of the smaller nail dotter, the other end of the tool. That's usually a little bit smaller. And then using the largest nail dotter and sapphire, I'll walk 2 up, and this is going to look familiar because this is what we did in some of the previous rows. And then I'll use the light blue to put 3 little dots and 1 dot in between those top 2 dots, top 2 sapphire blue dots, and this is just to give it a little accent. Now I went back in and added a top, another dot at the very top. I just didn't seem balanced, so I added another little teeny dot above each one of those just to balance it out. At least it balanced it out to my eye. Now, one thing that I didn't film was this element, which is in the middle of each of the sides, and that is using the L11 8 millimeter and the J10 6 millimeter to create those 3 dots, and then I just used the largest nail dotter to walk the light blue around each one of those. So that completes the first base layer of paint for the piece. And now it's a matter of looking at it and deciding if you want to add top dots or not. I did add top dots, so I am going to go ahead and show you that. I've sped it up pretty significantly, but some of you like to see that, so I'm going to go ahead and show it, and so you can take a look at how I do that. And all I'm doing really is looking at the original color of dot, using usually a lighter color first or a contrasting color, it's up to you, and a smaller size tool. And it's hard for me to tell you which tool to use, so I would say look at your set of tools and just choose one that looks like it will give you a smaller size dot that you can put right in the middle. And don't forget, you know, if your piece is dry, you can always use a Q-tip to pull it out and try a different size tool if you like to. So we're just going to go through this and apply the top dots. I'm going to go silent for a little bit so you can just watch this. I kind of debated with myself whether I should put background music, but I know that some people don't like that, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it silent, but you can take a look at it. So I'll add the first layer of top dots, and then I will go back in and add another layer. So on a lot of these dots, I actually end up with three layers of paint. And I think that gives really a lot of depth and dimension. But you know, you don't have to do it like that. It's really very pretty without the top dots. And I know some people use crystals. I do that also sometimes. I thought this one had also already a lot of elements to it, and I thought it might make it too busy if I put even one more thing on it. So I just left it with the top dots. So here you go, and we'll come back when the top dots are finished. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and seeing the whole process. And let me know what you think about the music or not music during some of these, this part where I did the top dots and I just kind of left it without any sound. Let me know what you think about that. I'd be interested in hearing. So I'm finishing this up. I'm adding the final top dots, and I'm really loving the way this piece turned out. And as I said, it's a little more detailed than some of the ones I've done in the past, but it's what I would call an intermediate project. It's really not that difficult once you've got the basic technique down. So again, we're just finishing up here. I think I have a few more to put on. And there you go. That's the last ones coming up here. So I want to thank you all for joining me through this video. I really appreciate having you with me in my studio. Here's what the final piece looked like on an easel, and here's a close-up of the some of the detail on the dotting. And I want to remind you that I did do a pattern for this, so it's available in my Etsy shop if you'd like to see that and have a written pattern to go by. I want to thank you all for joining. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and leaving me a comment. I really appreciate it. Thank you all. Take care.